Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt in Studio West. Always happy to welcome Mary Catherine Ham, America's happiest podcaster, host of Getting Hammered, along with your morning show for any time of the day, along with co-host Vic Mattis. Mary Catherine, I got a bunch of things to cover with you. I want to begin with the talk of impeachment. I woke up this morning, and my old friend Mark Levin, who I've literally known for 40 years, is mad at me for protecting the ruling class because I agree with the Chief Justice of the United States that we shouldn't be talking about impeaching federal judges because they're boneheads. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think mere disagreement is not a reason. And I also am sympathetic to people who go, wow, the ruling's coming down fast and hard, basically saying that the executive does not have the power to do anything, are frustrating. And the appeals process that you would remedy that by is very frustrating as well. These wheels can move a little slow, and it does feel like often it's tilted in the direction of like, hey, you can do all the liberal things, but you can't do all the limiting things that a conservative executive or someone who might like to limit the government can do. And so that feels wrong to people who voted for Donald Trump for this reason. But I'm with you that I'm very wary about how you use impeachment and for what reasons. Because I want to
and
believe
this
in
poor
the
judge is
separation
way
of
out
powers
over
in
his
that part of the
skis.
government.
This poor guy is way out over his skis. He's a district court judge. He's a, quote, chief judge of D.C., which means he gets to make some assignments and panels, but it doesn't make him more important than the other district court judges. So he's punching up against the President of the United States and the Attorney General. He's going to lose. He ought to dismiss this as a non-justiciable political question and punt. Do you think he'll punt, or do you think he's going to try and tell the president to bring the deportee back to the United States?
Well, see, now he seems mad, which I think is
Yeah,
the cost of seeming like you're defying his order, which there's been some argument about that, but it ticked off the judge, and I know a ticked off judge isn't one that I want to deal with. So I would probably guess that he continues forward fighting with them when maybe the better option would be to say, let's kick this up to a higher court.
Mary Catherine, you're a normal person, a normie we call you.
Yeah.
I think the judge is embarrassed because he was lazy and high-handed on Friday night, did not write down the order, and assumed that people were going to read his mind and treat him like a federal judge. Because when they go to heaven, they think they sit on the bench with God. That's what I think.
Right.
And therefore, an angry, embarrassed, lazy judge is likely to strike out. But what's your advice to people who are embarrassed, lazy, and angry in every other situation?
You would say, oops, I goofed that up, and try to remedy it some other way than continuing to fight.
That is. Now, I got a mom question for you. I don't know if you've seen this story. 13-year-old girl, middle of the country, does not want to change into her gym clothes in front of a 13-year-old trans girl, boy identifying as a girl. And so she goes home and gets upset, and her mom goes to the school board. Turns out it happens again, and then the gym teacher, the assistant principal, and the principal make her change clothes in front of this trans girl. I think this is not a good issue for these teachers and principals. What do you think?
No, when I read this, I double checked it like 3 times because I thought
I'm glad.
This can't be correct. No, I read it many times because I wanted to make sure that it was correct because it sounded so insane. 3 or 4 grown women are policing the possible protest by these young ladies of saying, we simply don't want to change in front of this person. We'd like to not do that, right? And by the way, protest for the left is A-okay as long as you're burning Teslas, including ones that belong to private owners. But if you want to just say, no, I'm drawing my line in the sand and I don't want to change in front of a boy in my middle school bathroom, that's the one where they'll gang up on you. The idea that these women were standing there watching to make sure that that this young woman changed in front of someone she didn't want to, that's the abuse. That's the abuse.
It's actually kidnapping. I think it's actually a tort. I think they can be fired. Although if I'd been their lawyer, I would have told the little girl, identify for the moment as a gender fluid individual who wants to use the unisex bathroom to change. But I really do think that is kidnapping. It's confinement of someone in a space they don't want to be. And they wanted her to change gym class. So you did check it out. That really did happen. Those people were that stupid.
She asked for a change in gym class, and they said no to that too because the fealty to this other person's feelings and this ideology is absolutely the most important thing to them. They haven't gotten the memo on the vibe shift, and they are so used to bullying people that they are comfortable bullying a 13-year-old girl into changing her clothes in front of a middle school boy. This is absolutely crazy. I don't know how you would talk in front of a school board and not lose your mind. And her mother did a great job of not losing her mind and being very clear. But
Oh,
woo!
Grandpa would have lost his mind. Now, the next question is, why isn't this on the lead of every new? I saw it. I watched it 2 or 3 times. I watched the testimony. I saw the trans activist mother of the trans boy stand up and talk. It's very dramatic. It's incredibly, I mean, it will draw numbers. The only place I've seen it is on X. Why is that, Mary Catherine Ham?
Because that's where normal people get normal news now. I mean, look, I do think that X is still not real life in the same way that Twitter was not real life. But where our fragmented media means that people see stories that matter to them, regardless of whether ABC covers them. And that's where people are seeing that. And I would argue, like the splashdown, which should have been a great American communal moment where we were all glued to our televisions watching that in the way that we would have in the 80s or 90s, but that became an X event. People were watching that online, and that's where they get things that matter to them, whether it's this horrific thing that happened to this young woman where people will find out about it, even if NBC doesn't tell them, or whether it's the splashdown that we all wanted to celebrate, watching those astronauts come safe home from space.
What do you think's going to happen with the 13-year-old? I have a prediction, but what do you think's going to happen?
I mean, I don't know what I would. First of all, I'm so proud of her. It's brave to stand up, even at this point, even when we've gotten a little bit more support for women like this. I actually met Peyton, the young woman who was at the State of the Union last night at the Fox Screen Room, and thanked her for her work and said, I know you didn't ask to be in the spotlight, and I know it's not maybe your natural place, but you're doing a great job. And I know you get a lot of hateful comments because of it, but what you're doing matters to other young women. So what I would do if I were the mom, I don't think I'd let her go to the school anymore. Like
I would sue them for a violation of my civil rights under Section 1983 action, because those state actors, those are state actors, the principal and they are acting on behalf of the government, and they are violating the civil rights of that 13-year-old, and I would hold them individually liable, and I would bring that suit today. And if I were the school district, I'd put those 3 people on leave because they're a menace to your school district. Mary Catherine, I got a normal question for you during the break. So I am back with Mary Catherine Ham, host of the Getting Hammered podcast. Mary Catherine, because I've been sick, I haven't been listening. Are you a March Madness person?
I used to be more of one. Before I was a mom, I was a huge basketball fan, but there are too many games per week. So now
I'm with you. The reason I like March Madness is it means the Masters is coming up. Now, I have a deal, and my marriage has lasted almost 45 years, so it's worked, which is I'm left alone on the weekend of the Masters. Have you established that deal with Steve yet? Does he have any no-go zones?
I prefer golf. I like watching golf more than Steve does. The Masters was always a tradition in my household because my dad grew up in Augusta, and so it was always on the TV.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I'm a weirdo who doesn't golf but likes to watch golf. I don't know.
Yesterday morning, I wanted to tell you. Yesterday morning, I went to an interview. I don't go to interviews. I do interviews, and if someone's conducting an interview, I typically don't go. But Jack Nicklaus was being interviewed by my friend Hank Adler. Isn't it wonderful when someone who is the greatest of all time, and Jack Nicklaus, the greatest golfer of all time, turns out to be as wonderful in person and in private stories about his life and his wife and his kids and his grandkids and the things he's done. He's just authentically the golden bear. Do you have an opinion of Jack Nicklaus?
Oh, I love Jack Nicklaus. Like I said, I was raised watching the Masters, and we didn't watch every major tournament, but this one was important to us. And so I have some knowledge of golf lore more than one might think, given that I'm terrible at golf and do not play.
Do you know what the gold that he's wearing the yellow shirt when he won the Masters in '86? Do you know why?
No, I don't know.
Because he had befriended a young 12-year-old with sarcoma, who died from sarcoma, who told him that yellow was his lucky color. And the young man had died, but Jack was looking for something to wear on the morning. He was eighth. He was eighth on the board. And he wore that shirt, that yellow shirt, because of this young man with sarcoma. That's the kind of story that you don't get in the networks. It was really great.
There's there's a bunch of class acts in golf, and there's a bunch of great stories, and it's fun to watch the guys who were just pros at one point at a shop come up and be able to play in tournaments and become in the big leagues for that moment. So I will look forward to watching. It's nice.
Mary Catherine Ham,
relaxation.
always a pleasure talking to you. Getting Hammered is the podcast you got to listen to. The happiest podcaster in America is Mary Catherine Ham. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.